everyone, and welcome. This is Federica, I'm part of the Docsity team, and it's my pleasure to welcoming you all to this new University Live webinar. Before leaving the floor to our speakers that are already connected with us, I just wanted to remind you all that after the presentation part, we do have a dedicated Q&A section. So feel free to drop all of your questions into the chat or the Q&A box that you find in the Zoom window, and we will be able to answer at the end of the presentation. We will also be running some polls during the event. So it would be nice if you'd like to participate, just to let us know a little bit more, just a few questions about where you're from, if you haven't been to a place. So just answer the questions by tapping on your device. You can see more people joined, which is great. So whoever just joined, just a warm welcome. And I now leave the floor to our speakers. And I leave the floor to Rebecca, who will be introducing our guest today and moderate the session.
Thank you, Federica. And obviously, first things first, thank you so much for inviting us. We're really happy to do this webinar. So my name is Rebecca, as Federica already mentioned, and welcome to all of you who are watching. I'm with here is also Therese. So she is a communications officer from Linköping University. So she is basically our official information transmitter. So she will be telling you a lot about the university, but we also have Niraj, who's having some video issues, but he will join us in just a little bit. And he is studying sustainability, engineering, and management. And this is one of our master programs. And then we also have Mandy with us, and she is also doing a master program, but this one is in ecology and the environment. So Niraj and Mandy are going to be talking a little bit more about the student life and what it's like to be a student at our university. So without further ado, let's get into it. Therese, could you tell us a little bit more about this university?
Right, thank you. I think you should also mention that you are one of our brilliant master students. Yes, Linköping University is we're situated about 200 kilometers south of Stockholm. We are quite a young university. We were founded in 1975. Full faculty, 4 faculties, and we also have we have 3 campuses, but in 2 cities. So the image you can see behind me is of Campus Norrköping, and what you can see behind Mandy, and I suppose Rebecca as well, except you only see the building, is Campus US, as we call it, which is the university. No, Rebecca has the University Hospitals. Mandy has Campus Valla, which is the main campus. The university, when it was founded in 75, it quickly became known for kind of innovative programs such as engineering and management, kind of combining these subjects, and we've still continued with this cross-disciplinary approach. We also have a lot of industry in Linköping, and especially aerospace industry. And near the university, there is a science park with spin-offs from the university. We have, I think it's around 26,000 students. 2,000 are international students, which includes exchange and master students. We have 29 international master programs and 1 bachelor program. So we're expanding in that area. But we have quite a few programs within engineering and computer science. So Niraj will tell you a bit more about his program, which is the biomedical engineering. No, it's not. It was a program.
Sustainability, engineering, and management.
Yes, I'm an old history graduate, so you can forgive me. We also have natural sciences, a few education programs, and then social sciences and humanities, for example, international and European relations or business administration. But I think that's enough as a brief overview. I think you're welcome to ask questions. We are a public university, and I think we are the 6th or 7th largest in Sweden. So that's pretty much that's the quick lowdown on us.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, we have like these master programs that are in English, so they are meant for international students. And Mandy and Niraj are both part of these masters, right?
Yep. Yes, they are both part of these 2-year programs. I think we have a couple of programs that are only 1-year programs, such as gender studies and child studies and applied ethics. We also have a couple of distance programs, again, gender studies, child studies, and also adult learning, which is completely distance, taught by distance. So we have, but I think the majority of our programs follow the Bologna structure with 2-year master programs.
So what kind of student can apply to Linköping University? What kind of student are we looking for?
Well, what you need to bear in mind, because we follow the Bologna structure, it builds upon knowledge that you already have. So it is quite difficult to switch major. We do have some programs that are quite open and they have a broad intake. But generally, if you want to study what Neeraj is studying, you need to have an engineering background. And the same thing, if you do business administration, you need to have a certain number of credits within economics. So that's one thing that is really important. It's really important to always check the specific requirements and see that if you have enough credits in the specific subjects that they're asking for. Apart from that, we are looking for change makers, really, kind of driven students who want to do things differently, who want to think slightly differently. And because we have this background in creating new programs, mixing disciplines with each other, we are looking for students who are willing to challenge the status quo, who speak up and are active in our classes, and who together with their classmates, move things forward. So I'd say these are the kind of spirits that we're looking for. But as I mentioned, the specific requirements and the background, the academic background, is actually really important as well.
Yeah, but we also know that these kind of differ from program to program. So what's the best way to kind of see what programs are available and what the requirements are?
Have a look on our website, liu.se, and under education, there's currently a page called Programs and Courses, and you can filter this and you'll see a program for, a link, an image for each program. Select that and go into the program and have a look. And that's where you can see specific requirements, you can see what degree is awarded, you can see which campus the programs are taught on. And even if you do end up studying a program but would like to live in the other city, it's only 40 kilometers between Linköping and Norrköping. So you have and then there's a free campus bus that takes you from one campus to the other that runs throughout the day. So it's absolutely doable. But have a look on the program pages. They will tell you a lot. And also the other thing that's worth mentioning is universityadmissions.se, which is the kind of central application system in Sweden. If you go into their website and you find country-specific information for your specific country, you can also see if you're the bachelor degree or even further back, if it matches and what the criteria are when you kind of translate it into Swedish.
All right. Yeah, that sounds really good. It might be a little bit confusing, but if you have any questions, we'll come back to it a little bit later. But now that
can I just quickly, I noticed that a lot of questions are coming in the chat. Could we direct viewers into the Q&A, please? So that we have all questions in one place?
Yeah, sure. So if you've written a question in the chat, and if you have the time to rewrite it in the Q&A, then we'll kind of focus a little bit more on that one. But I will do my best to try and keep an eye on both, just in case, so nothing slips through the cracks. But thank you, Therese. All right, so moving on to the more personal stuff, maybe. So Therese mentioned that it's an application process, and there's a lot of things you need to do. You need to have a certain level of English, so it might all sound a little bit overwhelming. So I wanted to ask Mandy, because you've just been recently admitted and just recently started a program, was this a really difficult process to go through?
I have to say,
the university does a really good job to tell you what you have to do and what you have to do to apply to the program. I thought this process was very clear for me personally. So it was a bit stressful to get everything together because you have to do your English test, as you already mentioned, and you have to supply all the data from your bachelor's program. So sometimes you need to have certain grades, or you have to have certain courses to even be able to apply to a course. So just make sure that you supply everything through the website, and then you should be fine. But since you can do everything through this one website, it is very easy to get all of your data in one place.
So since we're already on the topic of applications, what made you choose your program? So you're studying ecology and the environment, right?
That's right. So what really drew me to this program was the way it was advertised, so to say, because here learning is very focused on problem solving. And I want to do a master's, so I would be able to actually apply things I learned in a job. And I would be comfortable and confident in my skills to apply for jobs. And that was what really drew me to this program. And that's why I chose it, yeah.
All right. And you're from Italy, is that correct?
I'm from Italy now, yeah.
So you applied as a European student?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's great. But Neeraj is actually coming from somewhere else. So how was the process for you? How did you come across the program, and how was it to come to Sweden, to move to Sweden?
So I basically come from India. So the process was completely, I mean, not completely, but quite different from what person from EU applies. So I had to look for finance as well, who can sponsor me for my studies. So I started way back contacting the financial institutions, on the loan process, because it takes at least 2 to 3 months. At least it did for me. So that was one of the important. I would suggest people start well in advance after you have a plan on which program you have to do. But apart from that, the process, I mean, I did not go to any consultancies. So I did each and everything on my own. And as Mandy said, the university did a good job in, making the process easy. And, you just have the checklist and you are ready to go. So that process is quite simple, except the financial part. So yeah, you need to start way earlier in order to do that.
Yeah, and we do get a lot of questions from how to do their English exam, and that is something that we know takes quite some time. So if you don't have it yet and you're considering coming, start looking into that, because most international programs, whether at Linköping or at another university, usually take quite some time. But now to focus a little bit more on your program specifically, Neeraj, what does a typical day or a typical week look like? Do you have a lot of assignments? Do you have a lot of group work? Do you have a lot of lectures? How does it go with your program?
So initially, when I started, we had complete 100% offline. All the classes were taking offline, and we used to have classes starting from 8 a.m. So that was kind of difficult for me to, get started every day. But we get used to it. So it usually lasts from 8 a.m. to maybe afternoon for my course, especially. So it's not a long hours, and each subject, each class will be around 2 hours. And you have like 30 minutes break. So that will be a typical day, you would say. But for my subject, the subjects were quite easier, I would say, compared to the other, specializations, because I have friends in other specializations and they say they have labs and, the time management is very difficult for them. So Yeah, I would say I am quite lucky in that sense.
Therese, you wanted to say
Yeah, I
something?
just wanted to chip in here. I think you do raise a really good point about time management and the fact that it is full on. If you are struggling, there are lots of study counselors within the faculties, and they can help you set up some kind of schedule, a weekly, a planner, kind of a study plan in a way, I think they call them. And I would really advise you to see them if you were to struggle, because it's I mean, they've done this for years and they've got so much experience, and I think planning is so important, because it can be kind of full on. I think it's fun, but full on sometimes, and with the right planning, it just makes it easier to manage.
Yeah, and we do also have a support system. So we have Leo Health, and their focus is on mental health for students. So if you notice that you're having a lot of anxiety, or you're not being able to maybe connect with people as much as you would like, we do have Student Health, which is a service on campus, and they will meet up with you to at least have someone to talk to. But they also have workshops in meditation and in mindfulness, and they also focus a little bit on studying and how to keep a planner, and how to stay organized, and how to deal with that anxiety actively, so that hopefully it doesn't affect you as much. So we do also have that support system. But now that we've looked a little bit towards what engineering course our program might look like, what does the ecology and environment program look like? So you mentioned that you were interested in it because of how goal-oriented it was. Have you noticed that it's that way now that you've started the program?
Yes, I have to say it's very intense, first and foremost, but you learn a lot. Like after a month, I already feel like I've learned so many new skills that will come in very handy later on, and also later on in my education. So I think it was definitely a good choice and advertised correctly in that case.
And in terms of like what an average day or week looks like, do you have a lot of assignments and group work, or is it more lectures? Do you have labs?
So the first month I had a different professor every week to cover a different topic every week. So every week you also had to hand in assignments. You have oral presentations and you have to write a lot of work. So you have to do a lot by yourself, but there's always hours where you can get help from your teachers and they will give you feedback. So you learn a lot in that time.
Sounds
So,
quite intensive as well.
Seminars and lectures, but also labs. I have a lot of labs as well. So it's a combination of everything, I'd say.
Those are usually the fun parts. And I can say, because I'm not from your program, but I'm doing another one that's fairly similar. So it's also in biology. Our masters do have a class together at some point in the future. So you're going to be able to meet more people from a different program while having the same course. So that's always very, very interesting as well. All right, so now focusing a little bit more on Sweden, like, is there anything that you noticed when you arrived in Sweden, Mandy? Like something that just struck you as like, huh, this is different from Italy?
Maybe not different. I mean, people are a bit more distanced than Italian people, I'd say. And not in a mean way. They just like keep their distance. That's normal for them. But I have to say, every Swedish person, or every person I've met here so far, has been very, very kind and very helpful. Like that was very noticeable. Every time you ask someone, there will never be someone that won't help you if you have any questions.
And did you feel that you were prepared to move to a new country? It's usually a very stressful experience, but did you feel like this was the decision that you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely. So in the beginning, it's quite stressful to like sort out your living situation, I'd say. Like when you come to a new place and everything is empty and you still have to get everything, that might be a bit stressful. But otherwise, with the arrival days as well, that the university has, everything is so well structured and makes it really easy for you to have the first day where you arrive.
Nice. Okay, so going back to Neeraj now, you're getting close to finishing your program, so you have a little bit of a better overview of what the full program is like. Would you say that it's matched your expectations? Was it better? Was it worse than what you expected?
It was actually a mixed feeling. I did not, since I am from a mechanical background, which I did in my bachelor, so I did not have a slightest clue about what sustainability, the core subject is. So everything was new. So I did not have a lot of expectations from the course before I came here. So, but except that, as Mandy said, I learned a lot of things. I gained a lot of new skills, and I know which field do I, need to focus more on. Because sustainability, my subject, is a very, very vast subject, and focusing on one specific topic is kind of difficult, and I'm trying to do that. I've still not yet reached, but yeah, I've done that. And thesis, it was really good. We had a lot of nice experience. We talked to a lot of companies. So my thesis topic was challenges of circular business models, the small companies, what they are facing with, and we got to talk with a lot of startups, like 30 startups, and it was very insightful, I would say. And some of them were alumni from the LIU University as well. So it was nice talking to them and understanding their perspective. Yeah.
Do you have an idea what you're going to do after your thesis? Are you planning to stay in Sweden? Are you planning to go back to India?
Currently, I'm on a lookout for jobs, but as I said, I'm still not really sure what specialization I need to do in sustainability. So I'm still trying to figure out and trying to talk to a lot of people. I'm doing networking a lot. So yeah, I hope I find something here in Sweden.
So you're thinking of staying even though the winter gets really cold?
Yeah, I have already witnessed winter twice till now, so I'm pretty much used to it. I don't feel that cold, which I used to feel before. So I'm used to it. It doesn't scare me anymore.
But did it scare you in the beginning when you first came here?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, not the winter actually. It scared me in the summer. I mean, I just arrived and everything was so quiet, and I could hear the leaves move around, and I was pretty tensed because it's not a typical day in India. So that was completely new for me. Yeah, but now I'm used to it. I don't like noisy places now. So
That's good. Encouraging. I think
yeah.
that's quite a positive thought. All right. So I think that kind of covers the initial part. Oh, I just bumped my water bottle. But I don't know. Do you have any more things that you would like to add off the top of your head? Otherwise, I think I will go towards the questions because we've gotten quite a few of them.
I think I'd like to add, just saying, from Neeraj, the discussion about, it's difficult, the cold, but also the darkness that tends to kind of, sometimes be, it can be a bit of a dampener, but again, the study counselors can help you. And again, having a structure to the day, I've spoken to students in the past who say, get to the university, go there for 9 o'clock, even if you don't have classes, or if you're doing your thesis, or if you're in a program that's a lot more self-study, and just kind of, have a proper day, planned, and it just makes it easier. And then, do what we do, candles and little lamps, and you can actually make it really cozy. But if you are struggling, and if you worry about it, it's I don't think it's that cold, but then it depends where you compare.
No one ever does.
No, but just proper clothes, definitely proper shoes, I think is one of the most important things.
What is the popular Swedish saying?
There is no bad weather, only bad clothes.
Yes.
Something people's parents always say.
I mean, I've started to believe it myself, but I think it's just so that I can blame myself whenever I go outside and I feel cold.
Yeah, and the inside it's warm though. I mean, I think this is the thing that does strike a lot of people from countries where it does get kind of, they do have winter. I mean, maybe not for people who are used to constant summer, but people who have winter, is that it is warm indoors. You still wear, it could be -20 outside, but you're wearing a t-shirt in the house. So it's kind of, this country it's built to cope with plummeting temperatures.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something I noticed because I'm originally from Portugal. So whenever it is cold and you tell people like, oh, I'm a bit cold, instead of turning on the heating, they will give you a blanket because heating is expensive. So it's not normal to have the house heated in the winter. But here in Sweden, as soon as like November comes around and it starts getting really cold, like all the heating gets turned on, like the restaurants are heating, the university is heated, your own room is heated. So maybe not a t-shirt if you're used to very warm weather, but you can sit very, very comfortably in your room in the winter, even if it's like minus 15 degrees outside. So I think that's a very positive thing of living in a country that knows how to deal with the cold. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of the questions, and I do see that there are quite a few asking about which website it is that shows all the programs. So I can actually write it in the chat, and it is liu.se/masters, and then you do get to the webpage that has all the program information, and you can look through all of them. And hopefully you can find a lot more answers there if we cannot answer all your questions here. But we do have a lot more questions. I did see a question here about scholarships, and maybe Therese, you can help with that one. Are there scholarships for master degree programs?
We do have scholarships. They are kind of limited tuition fee waivers in a sense. So they tend to cover 50% of the tuition fee. Fee paying students, I mean, we've touched upon it already, but EU citizens are exempt from fees because Swedish students don't pay, which means that other EU citizens don't pay either. But if you're from outside the EU, you have to pay student fees, and the scholarships are, it's called LIU International Scholarship, and you can apply for it in April. It's open for a few days. And to be eligible, you need to have applied for a specific program at Linköping University. And when you do apply, you have to apply on time. So by, I think it's 17th of January next year is the deadline. You have to submit all the supporting documents before 1st of February. And also you have to have chosen the program that you want a scholarship for as your number one. You can choose up to 4 programs, but then you rank them in order of priority. So you need to rank it as your one priority, and then you get the admission results at early April. And once you have the admission results, then you can apply for a scholarship. And there's usually around 20 to 25, and they tend to be 50%. You should, however, look into the Swedish Institute. They do have a kind of a broader, an all-inclusive scholarship, tuition fee and cost of living. This scholarship, however, is only open to certain countries. I think there's about 40 or 45 countries. But check if your country is on that list. And also there'll be certain programs that will be eligible, but that won't be announced until, I think it was early November. But it's important to do the application process in a timely manner. So meet the deadlines and choose and put it as your number one priority.
Yes, but yeah, I think that's very important information, because I personally was very surprised that as a European student, I would not pay anything, because in Portugal, you do have to pay for higher education, and especially if it is a master program. So that is something that personally also came into consideration when choosing this master program. But I do have a question a little bit more about the cost of living and such. So Mandy, do you want to talk a little bit about the cost of living in Sweden and how different it is from Italy specifically?
I think it depends on what you're looking at, because groceries can be a bit more expensive than where I come from. But if you're very good at buying stuff that is in season, or if you're very good at hunting offers, then this might not be the case. And there's a lot of tips on the blogs as well, on the LIU blogs. So if you want to save money, have a look at there. People are very good at it. Otherwise, I think the cinema is quite expensive here, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, so stuff like this is a bit more expensive than where I come from. Also, drinks are a bit more expensive than where I come from. But otherwise, I have noticed like a really big difference.
And what about you, Niraj? Is it different from India?
Yeah, you forgot the main part, the rent. The rent is quite expensive, quite expensive because when I started here, I lived in a corridor room, so the rent was a bit less. But now I am sharing with my friends. I live in an apartment, so that will be more cheaper if you're planning to stay. But yeah. Apart from that, yeah, as Mandy said, it really depends on person to person. Usually spend around 2000 kroner for groceries per month, for a month, because I eat rice a lot. So it depends from person to person. But the rent usually, if you're staying in a corridor room, it ranges between 3,500 to 4,500, and a single studio apartments, it ranges between 4,000 to 5,000. So yeah, that's around an estimate. Yeah.
And a question that we also get very often, especially from non-EU students, is if it's possible to work at the same time that you're studying. So do you, in terms of time and everything, do you know if that's possible?
Yeah, so the university, first of all, do not recommend any students to work along with your full-time studies, because you have to spend 40 hours per week for your full-time studies, and it also depend on your specialization. As I said, my master program was not that hectic, but even then I couldn't do. I mean, I prefer not to work during the the semester, because I usually work during holidays or maybe summer vacations to cover up my expenses. Yeah, but I would prefer not to work. But if there is no option and you really need the finance, you have to, as I said, time management is something which a lot of people lack skill. So yeah, but you'll get used to it. But eventually, I think you will manage you'll manage the finances.
So Therese, I think this next question is for you, because it is
can I add a few things, just a few things too. I think Sweden is if you compare it to India, it will be very expensive. But I think if you compare it to most other European cities, some things are more expensive. Definitely, eating out and drinking in pubs and restaurants, that's more expensive. But I used to live in England, and I don't think it's that big of a difference. And I think a lot of people who come here are surprised that it's not as expensive as I thought. But this is in a European context. You mustn't forget that. And the other thing is, if you're from outside the EU, and when you apply for a student visa, you do actually need to show that you have around 800 euros in your account per month for 10 months. So that's what the migration agency require. I think a lot of people don't necessarily, spend that, but it's a guideline, and that's kind of what we would consider, a livable. It wouldn't be a wage, but a livable amount. So that's kind of your guideline.
Yeah, I can definitely say that personally, I do not spend that much. but it is the requirement to have that amount of money in your account every month. So we have quite a few questions about the English level, and I do know that the admissions and everything is done directly through university admissions, but maybe Therese, you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the English requirements, it's for the IELTS test, it's 6.5 with no section below 5.5, and the IELTS, the online, I think it's 90. No, the TOEFL, I mean 90. So these are the requirements. Have a look on the program pages. Again, you will find a lot of information. We also have a page, if you Google LIU how to apply. There's actually a short film that shows you how to do it, and it will tell you these things. But I think this is kind of general for Sweden. But it's 6.5 or 90. Those are there. And as Rebecca said earlier, book your test early, because sometimes you have to wait. There might not be a test available in your town. So it's really important that you plan ahead. The application period, it opens 18th of October, closes 17th of January. So you should have everything in order. And the earlier you apply, the sooner our admissions unit can spot errors or if there's anything missing.
Yeah, that's very true. And I know that the application process can be quite stressful, because once you've submitted everything and everything is done, you don't actually get anything confirming that all your papers are correct. So that part is a little bit stressful, but the admissions are done directly through university admissions. So we also have a question, which I think I will direct at Mandy, which is about the main challenge for international students when they get to Linköping.
I think in the beginning, it might be a bit overwhelming to get to know new people, because you're sort of like, you're very alone in the first day and you want to meet new friends as fast as possible. So that might be a bit overwhelming, but actually there's a lot of associations where you can meet new people. For example, ESA and ESN made it really easy for me to meet new people when I arrived. Because when I arrived, it was 2 weeks, I think, before university started. So I tried to get to know people early, and that was a great way to do that. So definitely check that out if you're worried about not knowing anybody when you first arrive.
Yeah, and I can also add that before I came here, I already had some contact with people from my master's, because I was following the Instagram page. So the Linköping University International Instagram page, and they did do a matchmaking. So they were basically taking the names of people that were going to start a program in August, and I said, yes, of course, I would like to get in touch with people for my course. And then we did exchange texts before I arrived in Linköping. So once I was here, I was like, oh, these two people are already here, so we can go out for coffee. We don't even need to wait for classes to start. And I think that was really, really nice and really helped to calm me down, because a part of the fears of moving to a new place is always just like, am I going to make friends? Am I going to meet everyone? Or am I just going to be sad in a corner and not know anyone?
I think what I've heard from students as well is if you find a corridor room, there's usually 8 students sharing a kitchen and a communal area. And this again, you don't feel lonely, because that becomes your family. So I think that's quite a common feedback that I get from students.
All right, we have a question here that looks like it's a bit more technical. So it is about a student that already has a master's degree in mechanical engineering, I believe, and they're asking about transferring credits, if that is possible. Do you know, Therese, where they should direct this question at? Because it's quite specific.
If they go to there's on the program page, there should be a contact us section, and write to us with your question there, because I think that's something that the program coordinator needs to look at. But generally, it's we don't really transfer credits. You start and you do the master's program, and sometimes it could be, oh, actually you don't need to do this course, or you can do it in a different way. But I would put your question through the contact us section on the program page.
And I'm not sure if we've answered this question already, but we have one about the applications for non-EU students. So is the application process in itself different?
No, apart from the fact that you have to pay an application fee. But apart from that, the application process is exactly the same. It's you still go to universityadmissions.se and you apply and you have your account at University Admissions. So it works exactly the same. The one thing that you do need to bear in mind there is we do actually, it looks very confusing. We do have two different application rounds, and one of them has a deadline of 17th of January, and this is really important for non-EU students because you will then get your results in April, which is enough time to apply for a residence permit. There is another application round that opens in April, which is kind of for domestic students, and we could also, EU students are kind of included in that, except the whole process tends to be in Swedish. But because they don't need a residence permit, they have kind of much more, a much longer period of time to apply. But because the residence permit, I would say it can take up to 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it is a bit of a more difficult application process. So we Europeans do have it a little bit easier. But hopefully everything works out there. So we do have another question about the language of the courses, and that one is a pretty simple answer. So all the international programs are taught in English, and that is why there is an English requirement to participate in this program. But we also have a request to talk a little bit more about housing, and maybe we can direct this one to Mandy, because we do have quite an interesting housing system, and we do have different types of housing, which might be a bit confusing at some point.
Yes, so you can look this up actually also on the website. The university gives you a list of ways where you can apply. Because here, if you want student housing with student bostäder, you have to queue. So the earlier you apply, the better, because you need to collect points if you want to house with them. So personally, I didn't actually get housing with student bostäder. I got housing with Heimstaden. It's also a way to get a corridor room, and a lot more international students actually live here because you don't need the queuing points, since Swedish people are a bit faster at applying and stuff like this, and they can collect points a lot earlier. But you could also apply and get private housing. I suggest you should also look on Facebook, because a lot of people find their accommodations or shared living places there. But everyone always says you should also be very careful to not run into a scam. So don't part with any money before you actually see your housing or before you actually come here.
Yeah, that's very true. I did have a friend who was unfortunately scammed, and everything looked well until he arrived at the train station, and then the person he was renting from was supposed to pick him up and never showed up. So always be careful when looking for housing. That is something very important. So Niraj, you mentioned that you now live in a shared apartment, but you were living in a corridor room before. How was that experience?
It was nice. It was really good. I met because there were 4 to 5 Erasmus students, and they kept on, leaving the corridor, and new people used to come to occupy their room, and so I met a lot of people during that time. The shared kitchen, I mean, yeah, cooking was a pain initially. But yeah, if you meet a lot of people and you share the work, and the time just flies away. And apartment, I mean, you really get privacy in the corridor rooms, but if you share an apartment, you have to sacrifice that. I mean, at least a bit. So, but if you are looking on cost wise, it is a really cheaper option. If you find a good apartment and a good number of friends, yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I don't think we have any more questions at the moment. So if you still have any more questions and you're watching from home, please drop them in the Q&A box. But until then, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I think we should talk a bit about what Niraj mentioned earlier about the opportunities for part-time work. It's not something that you should kind of take for granted that you will be able to work your way through university. I think that's important to mention. That there are students who do work in, they deliver newspapers early in the morning, and so on. But it shouldn't. It's not like what I see in the American movies where people work their way through college. We don't really have that opportunity. Having said that, you do get a work visa with your student visa. And once you have graduated, you have up to a year to stay in Sweden to find a job. And this applies to students from outside the EU. Within the EU, it's obviously different.
Yeah, I think that's quite an important point, because we do get that question fairly frequently. But unfortunately, it's also quite difficult to get a job in Sweden if you don't speak the language, because a lot of times they require you to know Swedish to be able to work. So that part is also quite difficult. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the student associations, because obviously social life is quite important, and obviously you will want to have a lot of friends when you're here in Sweden. So Niraj, did you get involved with any student associations or anything like that?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot. I was, excited when I was arriving. So I went to different student associations. I emailed them. I attended a lot of events, and then everything stopped during the pandemic. There was no events, but now I think they are back in action again. There are a lot of events which they have started, and there was one association for especially Indians, Indian Student Organization. So they deal with all the festivals what we used to have in India. So we celebrate together on the festival day. So that's a really interesting community. And I'm a part of a community Linslusen, which is a photography community. So I really like taking photographs and videographs. So I'm part of that association as well, even now. So we usually have events like photo walks or discussions about the photography and the equipment and stuff like that. So people who are photo enthusiasts, so they can join the associations. And the best part is you don't have to pay for any of these associations. So they are non-profit organizations. They're just like non-profit organizations. You don't have to pay anything. But yes, some of the associations, especially for the events, they charge you for the events if they are arranging a travel or a snack or something like that, or else there is nothing. And you get to meet a lot of people. That is the whole point of student association. You get to meet a lot of people from different backgrounds, different age group, and that's a really fun part of what I spent here in Sweden. Yeah.
That sounds like you did a lot. Was it hard to combine this with your study, or did it flow quite nicely?
Yeah, even before, I would say I was lucky enough to know how to manage the time. So I won't attend a lot of events if I have a lot of work. So I balance it out. Even though I was a part of a lot of communities, but yeah, prioritizing your work, and so that is very critical, I would say.
Does your program have any sort of placement or internship that kind of helps you get into the work areas here?
No, actually, I mean, we had industrial visits where you would visit an industry and get to know how the industry, basically a company works. And we had gone for Tekniska Verken. It's a recycling company for Linköping, basically. So that there you won't meet people, but you get to understand the company and how it works and how the waste and everything is segregated in Linköping. And then personally, you have to mail them and connect with them. But apart from that, I don't think the university provides any internship as such, but there are a lot of internship opportunities which are available where you can apply on your own. You don't have to depend on the university for that. But yeah, I mean, I was getting, I mean, the summer holidays was there when the pandemic hit. So all the applications which I had applied for the internships were not successful, apparently. But here now at the moment, there are a lot of opportunities which are opening up, not only in Sweden, but all over the Europe, actually.
That's good. That's always, oh yeah, go.
No, it's good to hear. Some programs do have internships as part of the thesis. I think, yeah. And I spoke to somebody today about strategic and urban planning. But I think, and also as part of your thesis, you can actually choose to do that in industry with a company, and it's not really an internship, but it does become, you make those connections. But Mandy, what does your program have?
Yes, next year in April, we have the chance to do a 6-week internship, actually. So you have to look into companies by yourself, and you have to get in contact with companies, and it should obviously have something to do with your program. And if it gets, if your professor agrees to it, then that's where you can go. But yeah, it's 6 weeks long. So.
And on top of that, you still have a 1-year thesis, right?
Yes, that's right. 6 weeks of internship and 1 whole year for the thesis.
Yes, it's very exciting. All right, I think that is it regarding questions.
Can I just say, sorry, I saw a question from Pierre about the aeronautical engineering. I would say, because I think you've asked it twice, I think you need to speak to the program director. So go to the aeronautical engineering page and hit contact us, because I think it's quite difficult to transfer your credits, but you can I don't think I've ever met anybody who has started in the 2nd year, but it's worth exploring with the program director.
Yes, I think that's quite important to mention. But yeah, so that would indeed be the last one now. Thank you all for your questions, and I hope that we answered a lot of them and that you've gotten some more information about our university, the programs we offered, and what life is like here. So again, if you're interested, the link is in the chat. So you at liu.se/masters, you can find the website with all our programs in there. And I will take this opportunity to mention that we do have a social media run by students, so that people that are taking part in these programs, like Mandy and Niraj. So we have an Instagram account which is Linköping University. Pretty easy to find. That's our international official account, and it's run by students, so you can ask lots of questions there. And you will also get a lot of answers regarding student life and what's it like to live in Sweden as a foreign student. But we also have a podcast, which is called Fika with Us. We have blog posts, which you can find on the website fairly easy as well. So make sure to have a look at those if you're interested, and you can also keep asking questions there if you feel like we haven't answered all of your questions. But thank you so much, and I will pass the word again to Federica, and she will give you a couple of final words.
So thank you so much. I really like to thank you all for this presentation. It's been amazing to hear about this university. Thank you all for attending and for all of your questions. You will receive an email. So the email will contain a link to the registration of the event. So in case you want to rewatch it, you miss some details, you will be able to do it. And also some email address that you can get in contact in case you have any further questions. So just before saying bye, I just wanted to remind you all that in case you'd like to receive a certificate of attendance from Docsity, I'm just going to leave you a link that you can fill in a form and get your certificate. One more time, I really like to thank you all for the presentation and all of you for staying connected and for all of your questions. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you soon at the next Linköping University live webinar. Thank you. Bye all.
Thank you.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.